What am I doing, you might ask? Well, you're joining me on my typical afternoon routine. Starting with some light reading, poetry by Edgar Allan Poe. I grow tired of it easily though, so I grab my special little plectrum, which I keep near me at all times in this box that has been passed through generations in my family, and then I play on my vintage Gibson. I'm kidding, of course. This SG Gothic belongs to a friend and I've been meaning to review one for a long time. I'm gonna tell you who this is and how the Gothic came to be. The first question I'm gonna answer is the when. The answer is Y2K, the year 2000. Even though the internet was a thing long before the year 2000, it started taking off somewhere around that period. Gibson had a website ever since 97, but they were not that active. So this is what their website used to look back in the 2000s. And this is what the products page for the SG body shape used to look like. We got the standard and we had the SG Gothic. 3 years later was the last model year for the Gothic series, which consisted of the Explorer, the Les Paul, the Flying V and the SG. The Gothic series also had a separate group listing in the 2000s website, and this is what it looked like. Gibson dared to be different with the dark vision of these guitars. Now, the listing consisted of the Les Paul, the Explorer, the Flying V and the SG that I'm gonna demonstrate for you today. And check it out, the Explorer listing has a cool feature with Mike Miller of Godhead. I'm glad that Gibson were showing someone else other than Joe Bonamassa and Slash. I love them, but come on. Anyway, I'm gonna try and find and review them all. But for now, let's go with the SG, and this is what the product page used to look like back in the 2003. The lineup consisted of models like the SG Standard, of course, the interesting Voodoo series, which I'm also gonna try and find and review. They had some more bells and whistles like the pretty cool case, and then there was the Gothic. These are the official specs by Gibson and the listing which states Gibson introduces a dark side to the SG. Not that exciting of a listing, I know, but remember, that's the early 2000s, there was no YouTube, the only way you can see this guitar was in shops and brochures. Even though the official listing was not that exciting, the guitar definitely was. I'm gonna talk about the features a bit later. For now, let's concentrate on history, starting with the portrait on the back of the headstock. This is none other than Orville Gibson, the founder of the Gibson company. He was born in mid-18th century, which coincidentally was a Gothic era revival for the US. He also happened to be a very talented luthier. He was mostly famous for his archtop instruments, the mandolins and the archtop acoustic guitar. You might want to check out the detailed history for this significant man. Next up, it's the 12th fret logo, which happens to be Orville Gibson's original logo for his instruments. So we got a significant historical figure on the back of the headstock and a cool logo for the 12th fret. Combine that with a dark, visually striking aesthetic characterized by the matte black finishes and black hardware. The term Gothic is used to evoke a sense of darkness, mystery, and a somewhat morbid aesthetic, which aligns with the popular image of Gothic music genres like doom metal and black metal. I know, blah blah blah, that sounds like a salesman's pitch. But in essence, that's what it is. That's what this guitar feels like in your hands and when you see it. It's so sleek, it's so elegant. Some of my friends call it the Bat guitar, because yeah, it feels like something that Batman would have played. I love the Gothic series. I've always wanted to own either the Explorer or the Les Paul, and eventually I hope I will. For now, let's concentrate on the SG, and here's the thing about it. It is easily my favorite SG up to date. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't owned a lot of SG guitars, but I recently had the 2017 SG Custom, which was pretty high-end. And probably the best guitar for me to make a comparison with this one, because you see, the SG Custom was incredibly expensive. It was around the $5,000 ballpark. This though, when it came out, it was around $900. So it was one of the most affordable guitars with the Gibson logo, other than the LPJ, which came a lot later, and the Tribute of course. But here's the thing, the $900 SG Gothic didn't feel cheaper than my SG Custom. On the contrary, I felt that my SG Custom had a lot of features that were not necessarily needed for an SG guitar. For example, SG guitars are well known for their neck dive because they have light, thin body and heavier necks. This though, the Gothic felt balanced due to a couple of facts. For example, doesn't have neck binding, doesn't have fret edges, doesn't have headstock binding, no pearl logo, just a silk screen as you can see. As a result, the Gothic is much better balanced than my SG Custom and probably most other SGs. No inlays to weigh the neck down as well. The only thing heavier on the neck side is of course the mahogany and the Grover tuners, but you can put lighter tuners on there and will improve better balance. Honestly, I'm shocked that this guitar is so affordable, $900. I know back in the 2000s it was still a lot of money, but compared to today it's peanuts. And for that money, you had all the essentials. You had the Gibson USA pickups, you had the Switchcraft electronics, the CTS pods in the back. It was made by Gibson in the US factory, and honestly this guitar feels expensive, feels so well made. It was discontinued back in 2003 and later came as the Gothic Morte, which I haven't yet tried. And there was also the Epiphone Goth series, which I've reviewed the Les Paul and the Explorer, and I love these guitars, and they were half the price of this. They were around $400 and even cheaper on the second-hand market. So the Gothic and the Goth series are something that you should definitely seek out and try. I knew I was gonna love that thing. I'm not even gonna wait to the end of the video to tell you that this is one of the best guitars that I've reviewed, and it's extremely affordable. Not my favorite shape, I don't usually play SG guitars, but I'm gonna seek out the Les Paul and the Explorer and I'm gonna definitely review them. And I'm probably gonna keep an Explorer in my collection. For now, let's start with the review. A quick spec run. We have a one-piece mahogany body, one-piece mahogany neck, beautiful ebony fingerboard, 22 medium jumbo frets, Grover 14:1 ratio tuners, 490R, 490T pickups, Nashville tunematic bridge and a tailpiece, typical SG specs. Before I go into further detail, this guitar seems to be in perfect condition, so I'm only gonna polish the frets and oil the fingerboard, and maybe some tune-it paste for the nut. I wanted to have a peek under that Batwing single ply pick guard, but unfortunately the inserts for the bridge are preventing me from doing so. Even though I've removed the struts, I cannot pull out the pick guard. That seems to be a design flaw, but anyway, we have 490R, 490T open coil pickups. I can measure them though. The 490T is at 7.97 k ohms, switching over to the neck 490R at 779, and the middle position is 393. These pickups have Audio-Technica 2 magnets and sound pretty soft on crunch. Control scheme typical for Les Paul and SG, a 3-way pickup selector, bridge volume, neck volume, bridge tone, neck tone. Black reflector top hat knobs that are all the way down to the body, and a Switchcraft output jack on the front. Here's what the black Nashville tunematic bridge looks like. PW marked on the bottom side. I've seen those on a lot of Les Pauls. This one seems to be in almost perfect condition and it weighs 52 grams. The stop tail I've seen on a lot of Les Paul guitars as well, has this instrument mark on the bottom side, and this one is pretty chunky. I'm guessing around 70, yep, heavier, 87 grams. Nice and thin body made of one-piece mahogany, has cutaways around the edges. Cutaway here on the wing and one on the lower. No binding, a thin coat of nitro finish that is satin, has some checking marks where the hardware meets the wood. There are stress points, and I've seen checking marks like this on a lot of guitars, like on my Thunder Horse for example. This is a very thin layer of nitro. Some more checking marks where the pots are, around the output jack, around the screws. This is normal. Even though I've oiled the fingerboard, still has a lot of pores showing. The specs say ebony, but this is one of the brownish ebonies I've seen. Some checking here on the nitro where the fingerboard meets the body. It's right over the neck joint, which is normal. No inlays to weigh down the neck except for the 12th fret where it has the original logo that Orville Gibson used. White side dots, the frets seem to be okay, the nuts seem to be okay as well for a 20-year-old guitar. Matching headstock with nothing but the silkscreen Gibson logo. No binding or fancy mother of pearl to weigh it down. And this is what the truss rod nut looks like. I've removed the truss rod cover, which is single ply black, and it almost seemed that it was never opened because it was stuck to the headstock. Now onto the neck dimension. The first fret, the nut is at 42.8mm or 1.68 inch. The 5th fret is at 48mm or 1.88 inch. The 12th fret is at 52.4mm or 2.06 inches. Thickness at the 1st fret 21.4mm or 0.84 inch. Thickness at the 5th fret 22.8mm or 0.89 inch. And getting chunkier at the 12th fret at 24.7 or 0.87, almost an inch. Feels chunky at the 12th fret. SG guitars are known for their slimmer bodies. We got 1.36 inch for this one, 12 inch radius for the ebony fingerboard. We got a 70 degrees angle for the headstock and 24.75 inch scale length. It's pretty cool that the SG Gothic came to visit right when I got this guitar, Sun and the Moon, and check out the headstock for the Salerno. It has the moon and star like the inlay on the 12th fret. Of course the Salerno signature is quite different, but it always reminded me of the Gothic series somehow. I'm gonna review this guitar pretty soon and I'm quite happy that I got it in this great condition. Anyway, back to the SG Gothic, and we have a 50s rounded neck profile. It is a bit on the chunky side, nice and comfortable near the 1st fret, chunkier on the 12th, but it feels comfortable to me. And you see what happens to satin over time when it gets in contact with the skin. Here's what the electronics compartment looks like. I see a Switchcraft L-shaped switch and a Switchcraft output jack. These are supposed to be the original Gibson CTS pots. These are the tone pots. The volumes are 300K, the tone are 500K. I see a ground wire going to the bridge here. The Gavit conductor wire coming from the pickups and something written on the tone pots. I'm not sure what is it, and there are green capacitors. I'm not sure if this guitar has been rewired at some point. I'm gonna have to verify when I review the other Gothic guitars. And this is the cover for the electronics compartment. Back of the guitar, nitro satin as well and in great condition. Cutaways here on the lower and upper horn. Cutaway for the top side and a slight cutaway on the bottom here for comfort. The strap button position is here near the neck joint and one on the back. These are Shure replacement strap buttons. The originals are here, and you see the big screw has been replaced as well. There are checking marks on the back of this guitar as well. They're hard to show on camera. I hope you can see them when I angle it like this. Nothing to be concerned about though. Maybe I can show it to you better from this angle. You see near the neck joint the long streaks of checking marks. That's just how nitro ages, and specifically satin nitro for this guitar. Again, there's nothing serious, this is purely cosmetic. As I said before, the back of the neck turns to gloss where it was in contact with the palm of the hand. That's just what happens to the satin finish. If I polish it harder, the entire guitar will turn to gloss like this. The back of the headstock has my favorite feature for this guitar, the portrait of Orville Gibson. I've seen this on so many pictures and I wanted to check it in person. It's actually a decal under the nitro finish. It's a pretty cool feature and I think it makes this guitar look classy. Feels like a portrait of an author on the back of a book. Get it? Open book headstock? These are the Grover 14:1 ratio tuners and they're okay. And I've been calling this guitar a 2003 model, but it is in fact a 2002. You have 0038, which is the 38th day of 2002, which is February the 7th. So it's a 2002 model, and I forgot to mention that it has a veneer for the headstock. Those Grover tuners are heavy and SG guitars are notorious for having a neck dive. This one is well balanced, but if you want to improve it further, you can swap the Grover tuners or at least swap those heavy bean buttons with something lighter. This will further improve the balance. I gotta have another look at that beautiful Orville Gibson's portrait. Man, that guitar looks so damn classy. I'm gonna honor Mr. Orville Gibson's legacy by using strings with his name on them. These are the Brightwire reinforced 1046 gauge for E standard. Thank you Mr. Gibson for this wonderful brand. Another design flaw for this guitar, the G string is catching on the nut, so I've added some tune-it paste. I'm gonna clean the body and the pickguard using this microfiber cloth. And remember, don't use too much pressure when cleaning or you'll end up polishing the satin finish and it will turn to gloss like the back of the neck. Do not polish satin finishes. Here's what the case for this particular guitar looks like. I think it's a substitute case branded Gibson and it has a locking latch and a sturdy leather handle. I've seen the Explorer having a case, the Gothic Explorer. I'm not sure about the rest of the guitars for the lineup, but this doesn't seem like an original case. And for a price point of $900, I don't expect this guitar to have an original hard shell case. Correct me if I'm wrong, I've been seeing these guitars with a lot of different cases. This one fits perfect. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is this cover. Even though it has some cool graphics on it, I've always hated these blankets because they always get in the way, and I'm not sure why Gibson had been putting them mainly in the 90s. Here's the compartment for accessories. There's a warranty card which has no information on it, but it has the portrait of Mr. Orville Gibson and the history that I've showed you earlier in the video. So unfortunately the pre-pack checklist has not been marked. We have no information, but we can date this guitar by the serial number. And here is the label that comes with this particular case. The truss rod adjustment tool and the strap buttons in here as well. It is a light guitar as expected for an SG at 7 pounds. Now let's hear the Aunico 2 pickups. I already told you what I think about the Gothic SG, but I'm gonna try and give you some more information. Honestly, I couldn't find a single flaw in this guitar other than not having a hard shell case, but that would interfere with the price point. It would make the guitar more expensive. And the other thing was the fact that I couldn't remove the pickguards due to the bridge pins, but that's not a huge problem. My personal opinion, I want one, I will get one, either the Les Paul or the Explorer, because these are the shapes that I like. It feels great, it feels well made, it's well balanced for an SG, the pickups are amazing, sounds and plays great. The neck is a bit on the chunkier side, but it didn't seem to affect me in any way. I'm just a sucker for guitars with ebony fingerboards, beautiful sleek blackout design, and I love the fact that Gibson honored the person that started the company by putting his portrait on the back of the headstock. Orville Gibson is certainly an interesting individual, and you should check out the history behind him. I love the Gothic series. If I have sold you on them, maybe you should know a couple of things if you wanna buy one of these guitars. First of all, they're still somewhat affordable, but they're not that easy to find and in good condition. The early 2000s were a quarter century ago, and if you want to find one of these guitars in good condition, you have to be patient. I've seen some of the Explorers and the HGs with delamination on the headstocks and other parts of the body, but in general they're still holding up good. Right now they're around $1,000–1,500, which is still a good deal for today. That's Epiphone money. And let me tell you this, I currently own the best inspired by Gibson custom Epiphones for the same money, and I would choose the Gibson Gothic over them in a heartbeat.